we're going to talk about three things. First, we're going to talk about how to put the Velcro onto the board in a very professional manner. Then we're going to talk about how to actually install a power supply on the underside of your pedal board, which is half the reason you buy these things. Lastly, and this is just sort of a bonus here at the end, I want to compare the hard case versus the soft case option for pedal boards. I think that there's a case to be made for both, and I didn't want to make a separate video for that, so it's going in here for you new pedal board owners. All right, so let's begin with the Velcro, and I want to answer a couple questions on it first. Number one, you should use the Velcro that actually comes with your Pedaltrain. I can't speak to the other brands, I haven't owned those, but Pedaltrain includes a roll of Velcro that is not just adequate, I think it's actually the best stuff for the job. I'm a huge fan of the actual Velcro brand. It's great, very heavy duty, but it's actually too big. The 2-inch kind of tape that you could buy is too big for the rails on the actual Pedaltrain board, whereas the stuff that comes with it is just the perfect size. So just for the sake of, perfection and keeping things clean, go with the stuff it comes with. Second thing, people always ask, which side of the Velcro goes on the board and which side goes on the pedals? So the kind of going traditional wisdom on this is that the soft fuzzy side, the little petty side, that goes on the actual pedal board, and the pokier side that's harder is going to go on the pedals. Now the reason for that is very simple. It's really just that the soft fuzzy side actually collects a little less visible like dirt and hair and particles and stuff like that, whereas the pokey side, if you ever lift up and look at your pedals, they get kind of nasty. So generally fuzzy side down, but honestly it's up to you. There's really no right way to do that. Now let's jump over to the actual installation and I'll show you how it's done. This edge here should be a nice, fairly straight factory cut. We want to use that to our advantage. So for our very first piece, what I'm going to do is I'm going to extend this across the board. Do not use a measuring tape for stuff like this, ever. It's less accurate. So extend this across the board, and this very far edge over here, you use your finger to make sure this thing is as flush as it's going to get. And then I'm going to kind of use my fingers across this rail as well, just to make sure everything is as perfectly in line as it's going to be. Taking a pair of scissors, these are just average old, whatever, everyday scissors. And I'm going to make one snip, just barely at the corner edge there, one little snip to mark where that's going to be. Now, this next step is important. This is how you get it perfect. My little snip is right here. I know this is exactly the right length. And what I want is for this edge to be perfectly square so that it lines up with the edge of the pedal board. Check this cut before you do this, because should be a good factory cut. It should be a nice perfect square. It isn't always. I'm going to take this nice square edge, and I'm going to line it up with my mark, okay, and I'm going to use a nice sharp pencil here to make this little line. And now I should have what is a fairly straight line to cut across. That, of course, is not the only way to do it. This is called a combo square. These are a few bucks, again, at like a Home Depot or something like that. And this is meant for this exact kind of task, which is you line it up with one edge that you know is straight and or square, and then you're able to use this edge to draw in your line. Let's check this while we're here, huh? So that would go something like this. This may be hard to see on camera, but the combo square actually got me a straighter line than the other edge of Velcro, so I'm actually going to go with that one. Bam. There we go. Now we're back to the pedal board, and I just want you to see this. Our nice square cut lines up just perfectly with the edge of the pedal board. So not only is this edge perfect, since we measured our length from this side of the pedal board, this side is also nice and perfect. Once you have your first piece done, the rest of this is going to be pretty easy. You're going to take that piece and use it as a template to mark each of the successive pieces of Velcro. Most of the aluminum pedal boards that are out there that are this style are very precision manufactured, so you really shouldn't have to worry about measuring each time. You should get a good fit just based off of that template. However, it can't hurt to just double check, so I'd recommend each time you make a cut or right before you make a cut that you just sort of double check each piece. Now this part is a little more scary because you're dealing with adhesives, and as soon as this adhesive part makes contact with the metal, it wants to stick like instantly. So you don't want to mess this up. So here's how you want to do this. Don't peel this whole thing off, Doggone it. Only peel off an inch, 3/4 of an inch, something like that. We're going to make a fold in the paper right here, and now this part is exposed. So now what we're going to do before the adhesive makes contact with the metal, and I'm going to line this thing up using the paper to my advantage here, to make sure I'm exactly on this edge, and that I'm exactly on this edge and exactly on this edge, okay? This is going to get this thing as square as humanly possible. So now, once I'm comfortable, once I feel like I have that, I'm going to put some pressure on the Velcro, I'm gonna peel this back. Oh, my paper restuck. Gonna reveal my little strip. Try my best not to move this whole time. And then we're gonna go for it here. Press that down. We've got flush on this edge. We've got these edges squared up. And on the back side of this, you can see we've only got this one little bit connected, and now we can peel this paper back like so. And again, I'm not gonna take this entire thing off just yet. I'm gonna take it off just a little bit at a time. So I'm gonna peel that back. I'm gonna put some tension. I'm gonna try and pull on the Velcro so it keeps it straight. Peeling the paper back a little bit. Again, using my fingers to make sure I'm tracking with the edges of the board. Okay, boom. And so now I've got adhesive from here to this point down here. And we're just gonna keep doing that process. Boom. Okay, so takes a little patience, takes a little time, but this is utterly perfect. Like, it looks like it came from the factory this way. I wish it did. It doesn't, but this is a way to get that done. With the Velcro on there, your pedal board is perfectly serviceable as is. But I know a lot of people, myself included, like to mount the power supply on the under part of the board. That's why you buy these things. It saves you some space on the actual pedal board itself for more pedals. And who doesn't love that? So the simplest way to do this is to actually just use more Velcro and mount it to the underside of the board. This is easy. It's also easy to remove the power supply for some reason. You need to do that on a semi-regular basis. The alternative route is to use a more secure form of mounting, which I prefer, and that's gonna require a little bit of drilling, which, so help me God, please do not be scared of using a drill. You'll need one of those to do the installation the way that I'm about to do it, but they're inexpensive, they're very easy to use. You should get one if you're kind of a DIY guitar enthusiast. It's very handy. So let's jump back over to the pedal board. I'll show you how that's done as well. The easiest way to do this is with a set of brackets and some screws. And fortunately for you and me and for other Pedaltrain users, Pedaltrain will actually sell you a very specific kit here. It's just a set of brackets and some screws. And this will allow you to mount a Voodoo Labs power supply to your Pedaltrain pedal board. Now, they have other kits for different power supplies, and other pedal board manufacturers have kits as well. So what I'm about to show you is semi-universal. Okay. You want to start by pulling the screws out of your power supply. You don't throw these screws away. You're going to use them to remount the brackets in a second, so save these. I had previously mounted this power supply with Velcro, and I was using the Velcro brand I mentioned earlier, so it's like industrial strength, very hard to pull off, but it's necessary because the brackets won't line up properly with the Velcro still on there. This part should be pretty easy. You just line up the brackets and drop the screws back in there. Here's a pro tip if you haven't done this before. Don't tighten each screw down all the way. Just put both of them in sort of loosely, then align the bracket and then tighten them down. Take a good look at how these brackets are mounted and oriented here. They can only go on one way, and it's a little confusing. There's no instructions with this kit or with the pedal board, so that's why I'm making this video. You're welcome. I decided I wanted to mount my power supply just off to one side of the board. This is so that I can mount other power supplies or other accessories underneath here later on. So to do this, I just took a measurement, I found dead center, and made a few marks just as a reference point. Once I knew where I wanted the power supply to go, I take the actual supply with the mounted brackets and stick it in place. Then I took a pencil and made some very precise marks where just the first two holes are going to be. We're going to mark the other ones in a second. Now you're going to want to grab these screws that came with your Pedaltrain kit. These are just really regular sheet metal screws. To drill your holes, you're going to need a drill and a drill bit. I think this one's 1/8 of an inch. A good way to double check this is to hold your drill bit up to the actual screw and make sure that the main shaft of the screw and the bit are about the same size. And now for the part that the entire internet seems to be afraid of doing themselves, want to hire a professional to do. You put the drill against the metal and squeeze the trigger. Aluminum is soft, this stuff drills super easy. Seriously, you have nothing to be afraid of here. And if you really screw it up, it's honestly the underside of your pedal board. No one's going to see it, and it's not that hard to start over in a slightly different location with a new hole. Now with the first two holes drilled, this is where I'm going to do a dry fit of the power supply. I'm just going to put it in place, line up the holes, and I'm actually going to set the screws in here. The reason I'm doing it this way is because with these screws actually set in place, it will put the power supply more or less where it wants to be. This will give me a really accurate spot for my next 2 marks, which is where we're going to drill again and put the final 2 screws in. If you've never worked with drilling metal like this, it's pretty common to not get your holes exactly the right size the first time. That's okay. You can use the same drill bit you just used to give them a little bit more of a cavity, or even in my case, step up on your drill bit size. Just whatever it takes to get your screws to glide in there and feel like there's not a ton of friction as you're screwing them in. With my power supply in place and the first 2 screws set, I'm actually going to use the exact same process that I just did to mark and drill the next 2 holes for the next 2 screws. That's it. The hard part is over. Set your screws in, and now you've got your power supply mounted and ready to go. And I'm telling you, this is the most rock solid way to do it. I love it. I know some people are going to be like, oh, Velcro, zip ties, whatever, but nothing is going to beat mechanically fastening your power supply right to the board. Last thing I want to cover is soft cases versus hard cases. I know this isn't necessarily to do with installation, but if you're a brand new pedalboard owner, this might be just relevant for you. I know it was for me. When I bought my pedalboard, I initially bought it with a soft case and ended up deciding to go with a hard one, but I actually ended up with both of them at the same time, so I want to do a quick comparison of the two. These are the 2 options that you can get as far as cases go from Pedaltrain specifically, but even if you're not buying from them, most companies are going to offer at least a soft case option, and oftentimes you can find third-party manufacturers that will make hard cases for almost any size of pedalboard. It goes without saying that the hard case is going to be more protective against serious damage, and it's also going to cost a little bit more, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's better in every way. I want to start with talking about some of the things that make a soft case like this one really stand out as a great option for most players. Starting with the material that the exterior of the case is made of, you notice right away that this is incredibly high quality nylon. I've definitely had some cheap like cymbal bags and things like that before. This is miles ahead of anything like that. One major feature that the soft case has that the hard case does not is this big front exterior pocket. And I have to say with the hard case, I actually really miss having this feature. It's incredibly convenient to have a nice separate place to put your cables, power cables, guitar cables, and all that stuff. Looking on the inside, you'll realize that there is a little bit of extra space for the pedal board and definitely enough room for your pedals to stick up vertically, but it's actually a pretty tight fit. It's not going to kind of wobble around in there like you might think it would. For being a, quote, soft case, the foam that actually makes up the structure of the case is actually pretty rigid, especially on the top and the bottom. It's definitely enough protection that makes me feel good about slinging this around in the car at least. The sides, I don't think they're quite as great. They're more cushiony than they are solid, but they're still pretty good, and they're thicker than they let on at first. Something you probably don't think about when you're looking at a case for a pedal board is how easy is it to slide the board in and out, but it's a big deal because you're going to do this every time you go to play. And in the soft case, it's extremely easy. You get enough sort of slop in there that it's pretty easy to slide your stuff in, and for that reason, I really like the soft case. The hard case, kind of a different story. It's actually fairly difficult to get in and out. A massively underrated feature of this case in particular are the zippers, and I'm telling you, I've had so much different gear over the years that comes in cases like this, and the zippers are no good. They're so easy to break, and it's very frustrating because it can end the life of a case prematurely. These zippers, made extremely well, they zip very easy, they're big and heavy duty, I love that. The actual best feature, though, of the nylon soft case is the weight. It weighs hardly anything at all, and I'm sure if you've been playing with a pedal board for very long, you realize pretty quickly that stacking all these steel boxes together creates a very heavy object. The hard case is so heavy. We'll talk more about that in a second, but this soft case really does save your back, and it's pretty svelte too. It's not any bigger than it needs to be. I think the soft case is undoubtedly the best option for a lot of musicians. Maybe you play only locally, or maybe you don't play out all that often. Maybe it's just a Sunday morning worship thing, or you're a studio guy, so your board doesn't go around all that often. In that case, I would absolutely go for the soft case. It's a great option. The hard case that Pedaltrain offers here is manufactured by PSG, and if you know that name, that's because they make like world-renowned road cases and tour cases for all kinds of different gear, and so this is just another one of those. The interior here is just as nice as the exterior. It features this egg carton foam, very plush, and it never changes the dials on any of your pedals, so it's not going to mess with your settings. The bottom half of the case is lined with a nice, thick, protective rubber, and the beauty of buying this case from Pedaltrain is that it comes in exactly the right size, which means you're going to get a very tight fit. And a tight fit means stuff isn't going to rattle around, which means it should be secure enough, hopefully, if you're brave, to hand off to the baggage people at the airport. There are no hidden compartments or pockets or anything to speak of on the hard case, which means if you're going to store accessories, you only really have one spot for them, which is going to be underneath the pedal board, which works fairly well, but I'd rather have a pocket if I'm honest. The annoying part about a tight fit, though, is that it does make it harder to pull the pedal board in and out of the case, which again, you're going to do all the time. You can see here I don't have a ton of pedals, at least not in the middle of this board, and I can grab the center rail and lift it out. But without that space, if this thing is chock full of pedals, it's actually really annoying to try and get your fingers in there and pull the board out. The latches are the standard road case latches that you would expect. They are super heavy duty, probably bulletproof, and they are lockable. Again, maybe a little more inconvenient to open and close, but they're well worth it if protection is what you're going for. You're getting some really nice, serious rubber feet on the bottom, which are as sturdy as anything else, and the corners. That is a weak spot on the soft case. That is probably the strongest point on the hard case. Gotta love the big bulbous steel on the outside there. I would be remiss if I didn't mention this handle. Really like it because it's the strongest handle of all the handles. You could lift the world with it. But the rubber that's on there, I don't know what it is. Maybe I'm just a little girl about this. It's super uncomfortable to carry, which brings me to my next point, which is the weight. This case clocks in at nearly 20 pounds empty. So once you put all of your cables and your pedal board and all the pedals in there, you end up with a really chunky box that you have to cart around from gig to gig. Now, listen, if you've done a lot of touring, you're probably used to this. It just comes with the territory, so no big deal. But if you're more of a casual user, this is something I would consider. It's kind of a serious drawback for a lot of people and ultimately just makes it annoying to take it from place to place. So who's this case really for? It is for touring musicians and paranoid freaks who don't mind carrying around a really heavy case. Personally, I'm okay with dealing with the weight. It's a trade-off that has to be made. I do have other people handling my gear from time to time, and I want the peace of mind. I've invested a lot in the pedal board. I think it's worth it. Having said that, that soft case is great, and I think it's a great option for most musicians most of the time. I really sincerely hope I saved you some time and some headache with that. If you ended up using this video, any of the tips or tricks here, I want to know down in the comments, or maybe you've got your own methods to putting together your pedal board or thoughts on the case situation. Regardless, I want to hear about it in the comments. I'll be down there as well. Also, this is freaking YouTube, so you gotta like the video, you gotta subscribe, keep coming back. That'll be really helpful for me and my house. I think I just need to do a normal, courteous outro for one time. No, that's not right. And with that, my fellow Frenchmen, because I'm partially French. Did you know that? And Chinese. Weird, I know. True facts. For you who are in the world, wherever you are watching this, hopefully you understand English. Thank you for coming by.